Hi, welcome to our Chapter 11 discussion. Our chapter this week was the instructional program and school attendance. So a lot of this will be about school attendance. But before we get to that, we have a separate bullet point here. So as the principal of a school, you have two students who are ready for graduation. Student A, I'm going to call them, has completed all of their course requirements, but has only completed 8 of their 10 required community service hours. What do we do with student A? Do they get to get a diploma? Can they go to their graduation ceremony by missing those hours? Student B chose to vandalize the school prior to the actual ceremony. And then what do we do with student B? So when I looked some of this information up, the courts are very clear on graduation. So as long as they have completed the required curriculum, which is set by the state legislature, the State Board of Education, and each individual local school board and school district can also have graduation requirements. When all three of those that work together set the curriculum for their school, that is what is required and what the students complete. If the students have completed that, no matter what they've done, they have to be awarded their diploma. And there have been a couple of court cases. The most famous was Valentine versus Casey School District. In that case, the high school kids were trying on their caps and gowns. They complained that they thought their caps and gowns had a funky smell. They refused to wear their caps and gowns, and the school kind of said, well, that's part of our graduation ceremony. So if you don't wear your caps and gowns, you don't graduate. And the courts said, no, if they have done all of the work, a diploma is evidence of educational worth, and giving them a diploma is mandatory. However, a ceremony is nothing to do with a diploma. It's just a honor to have. And so it is not required in any way, shape, or form. So in a case of student A, I don't know, guys, maybe you can help me with this, but if they've only done 8 of the 10 required hours of community service, I don't know if they're done. But I think the caveat would be that that 10 hours of community service would have to be listed in school district policy, that is a graduation requirement, and every school has a policy that says what the graduation requirements are.
I agree. I think that if it is a graduation requirement, then it has to be done. Like, I think the student should have to do it. And I think you could withhold it for that, especially if you have it in a policy and like the students know about it many months prior to graduation. Like, I think they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys basically touched on all the points. I think as long as it was laid out in their, their graduation requirements, I don't think that there's really an argument to it. I mean, they've only finished 8 of the 10 hours. So, I mean, I think it's pretty, cut and dry. They didn't meet the requirements. So
I think if I was the principal, I would probably let student A walk in the ceremony and have their ceremony, but I would withhold their diploma until they had finished. But I would probably give them their ceremony. I mean, this isn't like they failed English or something. This is community service. I mean, it's still a graduation requirement at that school, but I would let them walk in the ceremony to avoid any sort of bad blood. But I would.
And I know, like, our high school, like, even if you did fail like an English course, they would withhold your diploma. You could still walk, and then you could take that English course in the summer to try to get those credits. Correct. And so I kind of see this kind of like as being part of that. And it kind of goes back to what the district's going to offer. But I think that you could withhold the diploma and let them still walk and then give them that opportunity.
And student B, who chose to vandalize the school, I'm assuming they met all their graduation requirements. They just had bad behavior. Bad behavior says they 100% get their diploma, but you could also 100% tell them that they're not welcome at the ceremony. The ceremony is not a right.
Yep.
It is an honor.
Yeah, I think I mean, our school was pretty big. I think we had 350 kids graduate in my graduating class or something around that number. And I think we had a couple kids who weren't able to walk, but yeah, like you said, they graduated still, but they just couldn't, they couldn't walk. Then again, I don't know how many high school kids really care about walking. Some of them do, but I think for some of them, it's more for their parents.
More
But
the parents.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our second one.
so the second bullet point asks us to find the state statutes that address student attendance, and then just kind of talk about them. So I teach in Iowa and Brooklyn teaches in Nebraska, correct?
Yep.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Iowa's attendance laws. So I think similar to almost any state in the United States, they do have compulsory attendance requirements. In Iowa, it is 6 through 16, or 6 through 16. And the cutoff birthday is September 15th. So if a child is 6 before September 15th, they're required to follow these laws. If they are 16 before that date, they are, I think the way that it's worded is if they're the age of 16 on or after September 15th, they still have to follow those laws. So no matter what, say they turn 16 on September 16th or 17 on September 16th, they're still required to follow those laws for the remainder of the school year because they were 16 prior to September 15th. So that's just kind of one of the things that it talks about. Brooklyn, you want to talk a little bit about Nebraska's?
Yep. So for Nebraska, their state statute in this, it would be state statute 79-201. Children are required to attend school if they are 6 years old prior to January 1st of the current school year until they are 18 years of age. There is an exception, like if that to drop out at age 16, if they can show that there's financial hardship or if there's like illness or something like that. And this is different than the July date of being 5 and having to be enrolled in kindergarten. As a 5-year-old, you do have to go to school and you do have to be enrolled in kindergarten, but you can't take attendance on that until the children are 6 years of age.
So to kind of talk a little bit about that in Iowa, there is like one kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a loophole, but it says that if a child has reached the age of 4 by September 15th and they are enrolled in a statewide preschool program, they can, or they are going to be considered the compulsory attendance age. So like the compulsory attendance age, they have to follow that unless there's like a written notice to the school or district kind of, stating why they're going to remove them from this program or whatever. But if they are in a preschool program that's statewide, they have to follow those rules as well, even though they aren't 6 yet. I don't know if, I don't really understand why or what the reasoning behind that is, but that is one of the rules. I guess I didn't mention mine's Iowa statutes, just chapter 299. So some of the exceptions to that statute, some of the things we talked about in our discussion. So if they've already completed like graduation requirements for another school or in another school district or something, then they don't have to, even if they are the age. There's court rulings. If there's a court ruling that says that they don't have to go to school, then they don't have to. If they are emancipated, they don't necessarily have to. And then also when it comes to religious services, that's also a reason that they can be exempt from some of these rules.
Some of the exceptions for Nebraska are that graduation requirement. If they receive a diploma before the age of 18, then they don't have to go to school. If they completed a program of study offered by a school that has not met accreditation requirements. If a parent or guardian signs an affidavit that states that they are going to an education program during their kindergarten year to prepare them to first grade, then they don't have to go into a school. They're doing a different education program. Or if they are attending a non-accredited school or suspended or expelled.
I think it's interesting the difference between our two states. That I had a student in high school a decade ago, it was a long time ago, and he was in high school and he was just done. He was not having it anymore. He was fighting to get out, but we were in Nebraska. And it was the year that they actually changed. They must have done a revision to the law or something. I don't remember what year it was, but I think Nebraska used to be 16 like Iowa is, and they increased it to 18. And I remember him and his mom and his parents, they had to go to court and they had to convince a judge to let him out of high school because he just didn't want to do it. He didn't want to graduate. He thought he could drop out at 16, and then he found out he couldn't drop out until he was 19, and he was just in a fit. And so they ended up just like getting him to do the work over the summer or something. I can't remember how it turned out, but it was a decade ago. But it's interesting that the two states have two different ages, 16 versus 18.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and according to the National Education Association of 2012, 20 states have 18 as their mandatory school age. The other states have 16 or 17 as their mandatory school attendance age.
Yeah.
So
and I
it
looked
is
at
different.
I looked at my school policy on that too. And the school that I work in, it said in there, it was in that graduation requirements kind of section, but it said if you could complete all of your required classes and you were expecting to be done after the first semester of your senior year. So like you do your first semester and your whole second semester is kind of like a waste of time because you've already completed all of your credits. You could ask the school, you had to fill out a form and ask the school board to let you out early. And I'm thinking that would have something with that attendance requirement as well. And so but it said you had to basically petition the school board for letting you out of that attendance requirement prior to, like there was a deadline and it was really early, like September. So if you knew that by December you were going to be done, if you passed everything, you had to know that like basically when school started your senior year in order to get out of that second semester of attendance.
Yeah, and that goes with one of the exceptions that there are, state statute 79-729 of receiving a diploma, and then you're exempt from graduating. And I graduated one semester early when I was in high school, and you had to have it planned. You had to let your district know, and it had to be approved by the school board. My sister's currently going through that. She's a junior this year and she'll graduate next month. But it's not just something that you decide last minute. Like you have to have it planned out to do that and know that you're going to get that done. So
and get it approved. You can't just like January 1st say, oh, by the way, I'm not coming in.
It doesn't work like that.
You have to have a definite plan.
Yes. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of kids that graduate early, but to you.
Kudos.
One of the
I keep
things
trying to talk my daughter into that.
Yeah, get out of there quicker. One of the things that I found interesting is in Iowa's state statute, it's under chapter 229 or 299.1b. So it talks about their driver's license. So if they are the age of like the compulsory age, so if they're 16, and they, they're not attending school and or any other school, they don't have an exemption. Technically, they cannot receive an intermediate or a full driver's license until they turn 18. So that was one
nice
thing that I kind of
tie-in.
found interesting. So I'm not 100% sure how they would be able to track that and find out if they weren't attending. But yeah, So that is one interesting thing that I kind of found. And then, so one thing that ours, like Iowa's talks about, is that they define truancy as any child of the compulsory attendance age who fails to attend school, that is provided in this chapter, and it is required by the school board or the school governing body, like what it falls under their attendance policy. So essentially what they were saying is that there isn't a set amount of days that a student can miss or can't miss. It's, they kind of leave it up to each district and each board to define, what they would consider as, the attendance policy for their district, and whatever they would consider truant is kind of what Iowa's law would consider truant. Essentially, it's not one size fits all for each district. So that's kind of one thing that I found a little different, because I feel like, most states maybe might have a specific amount of days that they're required to go, or I'm not sure. Brooklyn, does Nebraska have anything like that?
Yeah, so in Nebraska, if you have more than 5 days per quarter, it's a concerning excessive absenteeism. And then they don't have to send you to the county attorney until you've been unexcused 20 days or more. However, they can send you earlier if they would like to. But there's also a certain amount of hours that you have to be in school. And that depends on high school versus elementary. High school, I believe, is 1,000.
It's 1080, right?
Yes, and then
1080 and
nope.
1032.
Yep, at the high school level 1,080 hours, and then 1,032 hours at the elementary and middle school level, and that's according to statute 79-1601.
And I think they calculate that when they kind of try to figure out hours, they go with how many school days you're there, which is why I think a lot of school districts have that policy that says you have to be in attendance by 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or like you have a little leeway in the morning with most school districts, but usually there's a cutoff where that once you're beyond 10 a.m., then that's a day that you're not there.
For a half a
like
day
you could show up at 10:01, but it's still going to count as a day against you.
Yep.
Yeah, so Iowa doesn't have like it doesn't necessarily say that you have to show up this many days. It just talks about ours is 1,080. Isn't that what you said? Yours is too per school. So ours is 1,080. It's 180 days for everybody. It doesn't differentiate between high school, middle school, elementary, anything like that. Just 1,080. But it doesn't state that you have to be in school that many days. It just says that that's how many days or hours a school district is required to have. It basically just leaves it up to the school district or the board as to what they would consider their attendance policy and kind of what they would consider to be truant. One thing it did talk about though was kind of like what we have at our district is attendance meetings with parents. So basically, you're supposed to have these meetings to let parents know, okay, your kid is, missed this many days. We're watching them, like this should get taken care of. And then like, it just keeps going on after that point. For us, we have like a level 1, 2, 3, and 4. A level 4 hearing is like a court hearing. Level 3 is like downtown, like our downtown building with like the head of our schools. Level 2 is with the principals at our school, and then a level 1 is just with our attendance specialist.
All right, I think we've covered it.
Do you have anything to add?
I don't think so.